today I'm here to talk to you about this book right here, Simon vs. Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This is one of the most creative mystery, romance, contemporary novels I've read in a while. The main conflict of this book is that our narrator Simon has been emailing one of his classmates, both of them under anonymous names. Simon signs off his emails as Jacques, and the person he's emailing signs off under the name of Blue. The story opens with one of Simon's classmates, Martin, letting Simon know that he has read his emails to Blue and therefore knows that he is gay for him, which he's not totally wrong about. And all Martin wants in return for keeping this a secret is for Simon to set him up with his friend Abby. Naturally, Simon doesn't know what to do about that, so he agrees to go along with the blackmail. The entire time, Simon and we as readers get more and more curious to know who Blue actually is, because we know he is one of Simon's classmates just based on how they met and how they got each other's emails. And as time goes on, Simon really wants to know who he is, because they've been talking to each other about really deep and personal things and flirting shamelessly, so really the only thing keeping them from dating is the fact that they don't know each other's names or faces. The problem is Blue just isn't ready to come out. All I'm saying is I was so emotionally involved in this book. On one page I'd be crying, the next page I'd be laughing out loud, and then the next I'd be ready to fight one of these characters or throw the book across the room in frustration. It was a very fall through the pages and into the plot kind of book where I'd forget that I was reading and I was just seeing this world through the character's eyes, which of course was so much fun. This story just seems very lifelike to me. Like all the insecurity, all the overthinking before sending an email, even how shaky and uncertain all of Simon's relationships were with all of the characters. This author just does a fantastic job of weaving human emotions into the story. Overall, I'd give it a solid 97% on a percent scale. That's just about all I can say without giving away too many spoilers, so if you have not yet read this book, Simon vs. Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, looks like this, I'd recommend it to anyone who enjoys trying to solve a mystery in a book as it goes, anyone who likes high-quality LGBT fiction, and anyone who likes when books screw with their emotions. I might even put a maturity level of around 13 and older, just because of little colorful language now and then, but definitely one of my favorite standalones of all time. So pick this up, then come back and we can discuss. I feel like it's worth mentioning that I have never, ever finished a book, looked at the last page, closed it, and then just started crying because it was so good. That has never happened to me before. Maybe it's the fact that I finished this at like 2 in the morning, but oh my gosh. So much anticipation, so much stress relief in those last few chapters. I was just overwhelmed with everything going on. I've never had a true laugh out loud book before. Like there's a line where, you know, you're audibly reacting to a book and then someone walks in and you can shut it down. I couldn't do that. Most of the books I label as criers are more like I teared up a little bit and then like, you know, could blink it back and like hide it in my... This one was gross sobbing. What an experience this thing was. Simon as a narrator was fantastic. He has this sense of humor that it's almost like he's so sarcastic that he doesn't seem sarcastic, but it does seem to kind of hide behind that. And he's really only open with Blue about anything that he's really truly thinking. I feel like this part when Simon comes out to his parents kind of sums up Simon as a person. Hey, I want to talk to you guys about something. I try to sound casual, my voice is froggy. What's up, says my mom. I don't know how people do this. How Blue did this. 2 words. 2 freaking words. And I'm not the same Simon anymore. My hand is over my mouth and I stare straight ahead. I don't know why I thought this would be easy. I know what this is, said my dad. Let me guess. You're gay. You got someone pregnant. You're pregnant. I close my eyes. I'm pregnant, I say. I thought so, kid. You're glowing. I look him in the eye. Really though, Dad, I'm gay. This really just shows how even when he's under a ton of pressure and stress trying to say something that's really important to him, how he can still find a way to be humorous about it. Or this one when Blue is worried about getting a new sibling and wants Simon to cheer him up. So yeah, if anyone can find the humor in this, it's you. Please. Or just distract me. You're good at that too. Love, Blue. Blue. Wow, wow, congratulations? I don't know. I'm trying to find the humor here for you. Poop? Poop is funny, right? I guess there will be a lot of it. I don't know why it doesn't seem funny to me right now. I mean, I'm trying. He's trying. setting this book down to physically facepalm at certain innuendos or trying not to sound drunk or just stupid things that Simon says in narration was a thing that happened multiple times. Let's just talk about everyone who I thought could be Blue. And let me tell you, there came a point where I didn't know who I wanted it to be, I didn't know who it really could be, and I was just reading it to see what would happen because I was just out of guesses. For the first 100 pages or so, I could not convince myself it was anyone other than Martin, simply because he was the only male character other than Simon who we really knew a lot about, or knew enough about to be a more major character in it. But I also didn't like that because at the same time, if it was him, why would he act so mean on the Tumblr and so nice when he's emailing Simon? Like, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but at the same time it seemed like, from an author's perspective, the correct answer. And my extensive knowledge of presidents raised a red flag when he said that he had the first name of a president, and I was like, Van Buren is a president. Shoot, I don't really want it to be him. Some people might call what Martin does teasing, and which is a kind of flirting. I think it was more severe than that. I would not see Simon and Martin working out ever. Especially because if Martin was trying to get set up with Abby, then why would he keep emailing him? That's why it just didn't make sense, but at the same time it really did. I am so glad that Simon addressed this, because I was afraid it was just gonna be a random obscure thing that just happened to kind of line up, but then Simon went through the same thought process that I did, and I was like, okay, I'm not crazy here for thinking there's a possibility. And there was also a little bit of evidence for Martin's brother, Carter, to be Blue, and not only just because he was confirmed to be gay, but also because there was a point where Martin was saying, like, hey, listen, I really think that you and my brother would get along. Like, I really think you guys should meet. There was a chance that Martin may have seen his brother's email and seen the other end of the emails and then realized that they were emailing each other. I thought that was a possibility, only we just didn't talk about that enough for that to really make a whole lot of sense. Okay, but when Simon spilled his English teacher's name, I literally gasped, because I'm like, you're getting closer and closer to telling this guy who you are, and I know you're ready for that, but he's not, and oh my gosh, it was so stressful because I'm not ready for that. And when Blue recognized that name, I had a feeling they must be in the same class, or at least in a class together, which then put Bram on my list because he also said something about, you know, being tongue-tied around cute boys. Bram, like, got tongue-tied around Simon at one point, so he kind of got on my list a little bit. But what didn't make him the obvious choice for me was because we didn't know a lot about him, but I'll come back to that. Later, even when they discussed straight being the default and how that wasn't really cool, Blue also wrote that white shouldn't be the default. And I remembered Bram being described as having darker skin. And I mean, that's not a huge piece of evidence because, I mean, I'm white and I agree that white shouldn't be the default. I kind of put it in his direction a little bit. I did not make the Abraham Lincoln connection though, and that threw me off a little. I also put Cal on the list simply because I liked the way that he was flirting with Simon throughout the book, and I know that's who Simon wanted it to be, and that's why I crossed him off, because that's too easy. I'm emailing this one person, and I kind of have a crush on this other person, so I'm just gonna assume they're the same person, and then they are. That's too easy. Not to mention when Blue and Simon had this long conversation about Simon's obsession with Oreos, and so like the next day Simon goes up to Cal and says something about, yeah, so my birthday's coming up and we're having Oreo ice cream. And Cal's just like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, no reaction whatsoever, and I feel like if he was Blue, he would have reacted. I figured it wasn't him, but it was fun to imagine. We also found out that Blue was Jewish, and we know that Nick is Jewish, and since they've known each other for so long, I thought, okay, like childhood best friends, maybe, but didn't end up being him. I even considered Garrett for a little bit, but again, we didn't know a lot about him. But we also didn't know a lot about Bram. And here's where I get to the point where I say, we did. Even though we didn't know Bram face to face, we knew him over email. And that's exactly what happened to Simon. I think that was the whole point, that he did know him, he just didn't know who he knew. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this. If we had known Bram better, if he had been someone that we like talked about a lot, then it would have been more obvious who it was, and even though in the book he seems like just some stranger, some classmate, some faraway person, that is what makes it realistic. If it had been Nick, like, it's not as interesting of a book, I guess. And that's the point. I was even terrified that it would end like a certain John Green book that will remain unnamed, where Blue's just made up by some villain who just wants to confirm that Simon was gay. Maybe Blue just never existed at all and he was just a character, and I would have hated that, but I was terrified that was gonna happen. But luckily that didn't happen. And so we get to the very end, and I didn't know who I wanted to show up. I didn't know who I wanted to sit down and reveal themselves as Blue. My original prediction of Martin would not be satisfying to me if the guy never showed up and it ended like, oh well, maybe some things aren't supposed to be known. That would not be satisfying. I would not be satisfied with Nick. I didn't know who I wanted to sit down, but then when Bram finally did, I loved the conversation they had after that. They were so adorable, like, they were so adorable. And as if this book couldn't get any better, Martin then emails Simon saying, you know, look, I feel really bad about blackmailing you. I realize I shouldn't have done that. I wish we could be friends. I wish I hadn't done all that. I seriously regret everything I did to you. I am so glad that he didn't reply to that. What's he gonna say that's not either horribly corny or horribly hateful toward him? Because I don't know if I would forgive Martin if I was in Simon's position or not. Just, I'm glad that he does understand he did something wrong. I feel like maybe in a few years the tension will subside and Simon will just accept Martin's existence around him all the time. I don't know, it was good to see that even our main villain could even not be as terrible, even though he was terrible. Like, look at all the things he did. Oh my gosh, when he revealed that Simon, the whole Tumblr scene just made me cry. I do believe his apology, I do think it's genuine. I just don't know how I or Simon can forgive him for the hell that he put Simon through. I'm torn on it. Just everything about this was so sweet and just horribly realistic. I hate using the word realistic so much, but that's the best way I can put it, because the way Simon overthought everything and how he read and reread his emails until they were absolutely perfect and ready to send to Blue was just so sweet. That, like, he really put thought into it, really cared. And I remember seeing at one point, just like, you know, I'm reading the letters, you know, signed Blue, signed love Blue, and then I didn't notice that that Blue started signing off love until like the end of the chapter, before Simon noticed it, but like not that much before. And I just flipped back a while and I was like, when did this start? When did this start? Oh my, when did this start? And then I realized that Simon started doing the same thing. And I just imagined that one came through and he would see, you know, love Blue at the end and stare at it for a long time, think about what that implies, then write out his new email, reply to everything, and then I just imagine him staring at the space before he signs his pseudonym and thinking about, what do I do? Do I just subtly also write love? Because I don't want him to think that, like, I don't also think of it that way. What do I do? Because if he's ready to say that, then I should be ready to say that. If I'm not ready to say that, maybe he'll think I don't care about him. Oh my gosh, and I just imagine him just saying, I'm just gonna go with it, love. And just then that just started without them even saying it, and without even pointing it out, just letting it happen. And that was, and I loved all the scenes involving the parents, except that one really corny one where it was just, oh, I'm growing up and teenage life, and that was disgusting, I'm not gonna lie. That's why it's not at 100%, it's 97 like I said. Wow. I think that's all I have to say. That's that's all I have to say for this book. So leave a comment letting me know some of your favorite parts of the book if you've read it. If you've read it, I hope you've read it if you got this far in the video. Why do I keep saying it at the end? If you haven't read it, I've just spoiled everything for you, and that's your own fault, I warned you. Let me know some of your favorite parts, whether you agree or disagree with anything. Subscribe to see more things like this, like if you liked. That's all I have to say. So now there's a chance that Martin may have seen his brother's email and seen the other end of the emails, but at the same time it also kind of went with the Martin theory. Not really. I teared up a little bit, and then, like, you know, I could blink it back and, like, hide it if anyone was watching me or something. But Simon signs off his emails as Jacques, and his pen pal, don't say that, Simon at one point. That's just about all I can say. So definitely close this video, and no, I've done this 100 times. 8 times. And I just think it's worth sharing that because Martin stayed on my list for so long, I was waiting for the point where they would go to White Castle, you know, Martin, Abby, and Simon, and Martin would just be like, yeah, okay, I'll have an Oreo milkshake. And so I would just be like, oh my gosh, no, it's you, oh my god. And they would just stare at each other, just lock eyes, and just be like, and Abby would just look between them like, are you guys okay? What's going on? And Simon would just say, nothing. I have to go. Luckily or unluckily if you ship them, that did not happen, but I just had this scene going in my head at one point. I'm like, this could happen. I need to prepare myself just in case it does.